But no matter how far or how wide I roam, I still call Australia home. I'm always traveling, I love being free. But my heart lies waiting over the phone. I still call Australia home. Oh, sons and daughters spin around the world, away from their family and friends.
Australia is no longer run by Australians. It is run by corporations, foreign investors, and politicians who sold us off piece by piece.
Australia is a hugely popular place for Chinese investors. They're investing heavily into real estate and infrastructure projects. Just take a look around here. It's not hard to find Chinese money flowing into Australia. Here in Sydney, this building, which is home to the Australian Stock Exchange, was recently purchased. The buyer, a billionaire from Hong Kong, known to be one of China's largest toy manufacturers. The biggest importer of Australian wine used to be the US and the UK just a few years ago. Today, it's China.
Deco is nice and clean.
Calling Chinese-born Monica Tu just another realtor is like saying Michael Jordan was just another basketball player.
Yes, I do know Michael Jordan.
She also knows how to sell some of Sydney's most expensive houses.
So they're going to move out the swimming pool right in the front.
About 60% go to cashed-up Chinese investors, and last year was a very good year.
We did, of course, to about $150 million now, and they were looking at double that figure.
The latest data shows foreign buyers snapped up $4.9 billion worth of residential properties over the past financial year, up from $3.9 billion the year before. The average purchase price was $914,000. China topped the list of foreign buyers. This is followed by Hong Kong, India, Vietnam and Taiwan.
We were once the land of a fair go. A wealthy, self-reliant country with world-class education, affordable housing, and public ownership of the basics. Now we are a debt-ridden shell, where young people can't afford homes, wages have flatlined, and critical services are owned by overseas billionaires. How did we let this happen? How did we go from owning our future to being tenants in our own country? In this expose, we are pulling back the curtain on how Australia was bought, who profited, and what it will take to get our country back. Chapter 1. The selling spree begins. The rot began in the 1990s. The political class on both sides, Labour and Coalition, embraced the globalist dream: deregulate, privatize, and outsource. It was the golden era of selling off what made Australia sovereign. Qantas was privatized, Telstra was sold. The Commonwealth Bank was handed to shareholders. State governments followed suit, selling ports, rail, power grids, and water utilities. Politicians said this would make services more efficient and bring down prices. Instead, prices went up, service declined, and profits flowed offshore. And this was just the beginning. Chapter 2. Who owns Australia? Now, let us talk about ownership. More than 35% of Australian residential property is owned by investors. Nearly 1 in 10 homes in Sydney is owned by a non-resident foreign investor. Agricultural land? Over 14% is foreign-owned. Our ports and airports? Controlled by global infrastructure funds, sovereign wealth funds, and multinational corporations. China owns major stakes in critical infrastructure. The United States and Canada dominate property investment. Singapore, Abu Dhabi, and Qatar are quietly buying up farmland, aged care, and student housing. And it is not just property. Supermarkets are dominated by duopolies. Media ownership is concentrated. Manufacturing is hollowed out. The truth is, Australia is for sale, and almost everything is already sold. Chapter 3. The Housing Trap. Why can't young Australians buy homes? Because housing is no longer about shelter. It is about speculation, tax avoidance, and passive income for those who got in early. Foreign investors buy new apartments in bulk before locals can access them. Domestic investors get negative gearing, capital gains discounts, and government incentives. Young Australians are competing with international capital and the tax-advantaged elite. They cannot win. Meanwhile, the government refuses to regulate overseas buying. Why? Because inflated housing prices make the economy look stronger than it really is. Housing is not a policy. It is a scam. Chapter 4. Energy prices are high because we don't own our energy. Australia has more natural resources than almost any country on Earth. Gas, coal, uranium, wind, solar, you name it, we have it. So why are our energy bills some of the highest in the developed world? Because we do not own the companies that extract, distribute, or sell it. Gas contracts are locked into long-term exports. Multinational companies underpay tax through loopholes. The energy grid itself is privately owned. And profits go to shareholders, not households. Australians pay more for their own resources than the countries we export them to, and politicians let it happen. Chapter 5. Political capture. Our leaders work for them, not us. Why do these deals keep happening? Because the system is rigged. Political donations pour in from mining companies, banks, developers, and big consultancy firms. Revolving doors mean former ministers get cushy jobs in industries they used to regulate. We have a political class that no longer represents the public. They represent the highest bidder. Real estate lobbies block housing reform. Gas giants stop price caps. Telecom firms stop infrastructure upgrades. And the public? We get sound bites. We get distraction. We get sold out. Chapter 6. What did we get in return? We gave up ownership of our airlines, our banks, our roads, our ports, our land, our energy. And what did we get? We got rising inequality, stagnant wages, a housing crisis, power bills that bankrupt pensioners, healthcare waiting lists, crowded schools, overpriced toll roads. We got cuts to Medicare, slashed university funding, and the slow death of the Aussie dream. The rich got richer, the foreign investors got fatter, and the everyday Australian got left behind. This was not an accident. It was policy. Chapter 7. Real stories from a bought-out nation. Emma, a nurse in Melbourne, pays half her wage on rent and has not had a real pay rise in 5 years. Reza, a mechanic in Sydney, was outbid by a foreign investor on a unit his family had rented for 10 years. Claire, a retiree in Brisbane, spends $400 a month on power and skips meals to keep the heater running in winter. Jack, a farmer in New South Wales, had to sell part of his land to a Singaporean fund just to pay council rates and debts. Natalie, a young teacher in Hobart, works 3 jobs but still lives in a share house at age 31. These are not isolated stories. This is the new Australian normal. Chapter 8. Education and Super. The new targets. Education was once the great equalizer in Australia. Not anymore. Now degrees come with lifelong debt. Vocational training is underfunded. Public schools are stretched while private institutions expand with government support. And what about superannuation? Once designed to help you retire with dignity, it is now a cash cow for fund managers. charging hidden fees while investing overseas. Australians work longer, retire later, and still wonder if it will be enough. Chapter 9. The media sold the narrative. A handful of media giants own nearly all mainstream news outlets. These outlets shape opinion, set the political agenda, and protect the status quo. Critical voices are drowned out. Distraction becomes the daily diet. Debate housing, and you are told it is your smashed Avo habit. Criticize corporate profits, and you are called anti-business. Raise foreign ownership, and you are branded xenophobic. The media has played its part in selling the illusion that everything is fine, even as the country falls apart. Chapter 10. The psychological impact. A nation losing hope. You can feel it. People are tired, disillusioned. They do not believe politicians anymore. They do not believe the system can be fixed. Young people talk about leaving. Middle-aged people talk about giving up. Retirees feel forgotten. We were told Australia was the lucky country, but luck runs out when everything is for sale. Chapter 11. What needs to change? First, we need to stop selling what we have left. That means banning further foreign ownership of strategic land, infrastructure, and housing. Second, we need a public ownership revival. Nationalize critical utilities, rebuild public housing, reclaim energy. Third, we need to crack down on political donations, close the revolving doors, and establish real anti-corruption watchdogs with teeth. Fourth, we must rewrite the economic rules. Tax wealth, not just work. Incentivize productivity, not speculation. Fifth, we must rebuild faith in public service, invest in healthcare, pay teachers properly, modernize public transport. Australia can be rebuilt, but not by the people who sold it. Final thoughts. Australia is not gone, but it is going fast. We are not doomed, but we are running out of time. Australia has been bought, piece by piece, dollar by dollar, policy by policy. And if we do not wake up, if we do not demand ownership, transparency, and fairness, the last parts will be sold too. The only way to stop this is to shine a light on it. Call it out, name names, push back, because this land belongs to us. Not to fund managers in Singapore, not to corporations in Beijing, not to billionaires in New York, to Australians. Subscribe for more uncensored breakdowns of how this country is being sold out from under us. And to see how our trillion-dollar debt was manufactured by decades of bad decisions, watch this video next. 3 countries, different continents, same path. The United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia are collapsing under the weight of their own bad decisions. And if you think Australia is immune, think again. What do Britain's failing NHS, Canada's housing nightmare, and Australia's broken economy all have in common? A formula: inflate the housing market, gut manufacturing, flood in people without infrastructure, and expect it to work forever. Well, it is not working, and the cracks are now impossible to ignore. In this deep dive, we are comparing the collapse of 3 nations that once led the world in prosperity, and why Australia is on the same cliff edge. Chapter 1. The British Decline. A warning from the past. Let us start with the United Kingdom. Once the most powerful empire on earth, now a nation where public services are crumbling, real wages have flatlined, and entire generations have been priced out of housing. Britain embraced deindustrialization early. In the 1980s, Margaret Thatcher's government dismantled the coal, steel, and car manufacturing industries. The promise was a shift toward a modern, service-based economy. The result? Northern England became a wasteland of joblessness and poverty. Wealth concentrated in London. The middle class shrank, and with it, social mobility died. Fast forward to today, the National Health Service is overwhelmed. Ambulances wait hours to admit patients. Over 7 million people are stuck on surgical wait lists. Trains barely run on time. Young people are being pushed into debt for degrees that lead nowhere. And while a small elite in London thrives off real estate and finance, the rest of the country is being left behind. Britain's decline was not caused by bad luck. It was engineered by decades of policy failures from both sides of politics. Chapter 2. Canada, the canary in the housing mine. Canada followed a similar trajectory. Once seen as a model of middle-class success, Canada is now a warning sign for nations chasing artificial economic growth. The country's economy is built on two things: real estate and immigration. The average Canadian house price now exceeds $1 million Canadian dollars in major cities, while wages have remained stagnant for over a decade. In Toronto and Vancouver, locals are being driven out of their neighborhoods. Investors, many of them overseas, scoop up entire blocks of homes. Foreign ownership is so rampant in some districts, 1 in 5 properties sits empty while locals live in tents. The government continues to flood the market with people, nearly 1 million newcomers in 1 year alone, without matching investments in housing, hospitals, or transport. Now Canadians are waking up to a crisis. Food banks are overwhelmed. Mortgage defaults are rising. Confidence in the government is plummeting. Sound familiar yet? Chapter 3. Australia. The same playbook, different accent. Now look at Australia. We too used to build. We had car factories in Melbourne, steel in Newcastle, shipbuilding in South Australia. We owned our banks, ran our airlines, and lived in homes we could afford. But that has changed. Over the last 30 years, we copied the British and Canadian model. And now we are feeling the same pain. We shut down car manufacturing, offshored supply chains, and now rely on imports for almost everything. Our biggest export is raw materials: iron ore, coal, gas, sent offshore and often sold back to us at inflated prices. The property market has been turned into a financial instrument. Investors hold over 30% of all housing. Negative gearing policies reward speculation over shelter. Foreign ownership is barely regulated. The average house in Sydney is now over $1.2 million. Renters are spending over 50% of their income just to keep a roof over their head. Young people are living at home longer, delaying families, and giving up on the dream of owning property. Meanwhile, immigration has surged past 500,000 arrivals per year, while housing construction lags, roads gridlock, and hospitals buckle under pressure. Chapter 4. The Collapse Formula, Step by Step. It is not a coincidence these 3 countries followed the same economic formula, and now face the same results. Step 1. Deindustrialize. Outsource everything. Focus on services. Step 2. Deregulate finance. Let banks and investors run wild. Step 3. Inflate housing. Reward speculation. Create artificial scarcity. Step 4. Bring in record migration to keep demand high. Ignore the strain on infrastructure. Step 5. Privatize public assets. Sell utilities, rail, healthcare. Let the market decide. Step 6. Shift. Blame. Say young people are lazy, blame global markets. Pretend there is no alternative. The outcome is predictable: a hollowed-out middle class, unaffordable cities, and governments more loyal to lobbyists than voters. Chapter 5. Healthcare in Crisis. Across all 3 nations. Britain's NHS is collapsing, but so is Canada's system, and Australia is not far behind. In Canada, patients wait up to 20 hours in emergency rooms. Family doctors are impossible to find. Mental health services are overstretched. In Australia, the story is eerily similar. Bulk billing is disappearing. Waitlists for surgeries stretch into months. Regional hospitals are closing or relying on underpaid locums. This is what happens when public health care is treated as a cost to cut, not a system to protect. Just like housing and energy, healthcare has been slowly commodified. Chapter 6. A generation paying the price. The young are paying for mistakes they did not make. In Britain, the average student graduates with over £40,000 of debt, only to enter a job market with unstable wages and no housing. In Canada, Gen Z and millennials are burdened with high student loans, mortgage rates over 6%, and zero hope of affording a home. In Australia, HECS debts rise with inflation. Renters are locked out of savings. The full-time job is becoming rarer. Side hustles and second jobs are the new normal. And across all three countries, fertility rates are dropping. Not because people don't want kids, but because they cannot afford to raise them. This is what generational theft looks like. Chapter 7. Real Australians. Real consequences. James, age 29, has 2 degrees and works full-time in Melbourne, and still lives with his parents because rent would eat 70% of his take-home pay. Priya, a single mother in Western Sydney, spends 3 hours commuting because she cannot afford to live near her workplace. Tony, a retired factory worker in Adelaide, watches his suburb fill with empty investment properties while his grandkids are stuck in a 2-bedroom flat. Georgia, a nurse in Brisbane, is leaving for New Zealand because her salary does not cover rising rent and groceries. Kai, an electrician in Perth, is seeing fewer apprentices than ever, because no one wants to train for jobs that are being outsourced or underpaid. These are not exceptions. These are symptoms of a collapsing model. Chapter 8. Can this be reversed? It is not too late, but it requires courage. We need to rebuild local industry. That means investing in Australian manufacturing, making things here, and protecting national supply chains. We must definancialize housing, remove negative gearing, stop treating homes as tax shelters, cap foreign ownership, build public housing at scale. We must halt immigration until infrastructure catches up. Growth without planning is not sustainable. We must bring back public ownership of energy, water, transport, and healthcare. These are not markets. They are rights. And we must break the stranglehold of big donors on our political system, real anti-corruption bodies, donation caps, transparency at all levels. Chapter 9. Final thoughts. Time is running out. The United Kingdom is past the point of reform. Canada is already unraveling, but Australia still has a window, a small one. We can change course, but not with the same leaders, the same policies, and the same lies. We are not imagining the collapse. We are living it. But if we act, we can still stop it. 3 nations, same collapse. Only one can still change the ending. Subscribe to Outback Crisis for more truth on how Australia got here and where we go next. To understand how we gambled our wealth and lost our future, watch this next video here.